Okay, I'm going to show you how to make this Japanese cheesecake. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version because some of these things take a little bit of time. But first you need this pan. This is basically a pan that has a removable base. So it has whatever you bake in it comes out easily. So I recommend this one. This is 6 inches by 4 inches, which is 17.5 centimeters by 10 centimeters. I've oiled it lightly. And I put this strip inside. This is basically a non-stick mat that I cut into a strip to fit the depth of this pan. But you can also use parchment paper. You can also put parchment paper at the bottom. I don't find that it's terribly necessary if you oil it slightly. And the problem is that if you put parchment paper at the bottom, it usually gets wet enough that it just kind of like bakes into the cheesecake, and it just gets so soft and soggy that it's hard to remove completely from the cheesecake. So I just use the oil. The next step is in here. What I have in this bowl is I've already melted cream cheese, milk, and butter. So right now they're still a little bit warm but not too hot. My next step is going to be to add the egg yolks, which are already at room temperature. It doesn't matter tremendously if they're cold or at room temperature, but just don't worry about one or the other. Just the temperature of the egg yolks doesn't matter. What matters is not adding it to this base if it's too hot, okay? So we're just gonna mix this in. And then we're gonna add the sifted flour, okay? So we use a very low protein flour. I use cake flour. It's already been sifted. I'm gonna dump this in. Some recipes call for adding cornstarch. But what I do is I just add the flour here. Instead of using cornstarch, what I use is, when I make the meringue that I'm going to fold into this, I use powdered sugar, which has some cornstarch. With the additional benefit of the particle size of the powdered sugar being so small, it really dissolves immediately almost in contact with the egg whites. Okay, so this is kind of like a additional benefit of using the powdered sugar. Okay, so we're going to set this aside. And then we're going to start with our meringue. I've already sifted the powdered sugar. The powdered sugar, we're going to add it in 3 additions while our whites are whipping. So I'm not going to show you how to whip because it takes a long time. I'm going to do a time lapse of that. But the idea is to get it to be between soft and medium peaks. So don't go too far. Don't get to stiff peaks. We want to make sure that we're doing a meringue that is going to be soft and easy to incorporate into our egg base, okay? There's also a little bit of juice, lemon juice, that goes into this. There's a little bit of acid, helps stabilize the meringue. So I'm going to time lapse whipping the meringue, and then we're going to fold it in, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so we've whipped our egg whites. You can see we're at like medium soft peak. Okay, so we're going to take about 1/3 of it, and we're just going to mix this in with the whip real quick. This is going to help get the folding in process. So I'm going to basically be doing this motion, which is, I go from the bottom up and I turn the bottom over onto the top to create an efficient mix. And now we're going to switch to the rubber spatula. I'm going to add another 1/3. Just got a little on the side there. And same thing, folding in, but now with the rubber spatula. Being very careful. We don't want to be too careful either, but just you try and incorporate a meringue into here, and we don't want to stir it too far. We want to keep some of that volume without affecting the batter too much. And now we're going to add the last 1/3 of the meringue. Okay. So, being very careful, we have a batter. I mean, it looks like an Asianoise, almost like a sponge cake, chiffon cake. So once I'm done, I know I'm done because I don't have any streaks of white or yellow, so it's all an even color. And now we're going to pour this into our prepared pan. I like to go a little higher up. This way, if there's any large bubbles, they pop. So this recipe is exactly for one of these pans. If you were to make this in larger quantities, that's fine too. It's not, the most important part about this cheesecake is it's not so much this, it's how you bake it. It's the baking of it that is where you have to be the most careful. Meaning, hopefully you have a reliable oven that can keep a consistent temperature. Okay, so the other thing that we can do is we can just give this a quick stir. This helps get rid of any large bubbles that we may have, but it also helps to even out the top surface. Okay, so next thing is this is going to go inside a water bath. So the water bath, what I have is I have set it up in the oven already, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I've preheated my oven, and in here I already have the water bath, okay? So it's full, like maybe about an inch of water, 2.5 centimeters of water. So this way the water's already hot by the time I go in with the cheesecake, okay? So I'm gonna put this down for a second. Okay. Pull this out a little bit. Right inside, okay? Okay. So now we close it up. Okay, I've just placed the cheesecake in the oven. It's inside the hot water bath. So the hot water bath is basically a pan that is larger than the pan I'm baking it in, not by much. You'll see it when I pull it out. But the idea is to put some water in it, maybe about an inch, inch and a half of water. I did that when the oven was preheating so that this way the water that's in the pan is already hot. But you can do it if you're doing larger quantities. You can also just use a larger pan, get hot water from the faucet, as hot as you can get it, and just use that. But what we're doing is we're going to bake at two separate temperatures. We have a higher temperature, which is what we're going in now. It's 300 degrees Fahrenheit, 150 degrees Celsius. So we're doing half an hour to get the volume. And we're going to drop the temperature then pretty dramatically to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I believe, 120 degrees Celsius. Perhaps a little bit less. I need the correct amount of temperatures are going to be in the recipe. So that final temperature, at low temperatures, just let it fully cook to the core without getting too much heat on top of it. Might crack the surface. Okay, so that second bake time takes about 60 to 70 minutes. If you don't have the color that you're looking for, meaning if you don't have that nice browning on the surface, what I like to do is I like to just like get the oven like hotter. Like I'll turn it up to like 160 degrees Celsius, so 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's just enough to just get color on the surface. If you're looking to have convection, which this one is, that takes a lot less time. So I usually just crank it really high, and in a couple of minutes I get a nice color on the surface, and then that's it, comes out. So there's no worry at that point of over baking or over cooking the cheesecake. Okay, so we're gonna look at this once it comes out of the oven. It's good to have a thermometer in your oven. I don't really use oven thermometers because what you have to do is you have to open the oven door to look at the thermometer, and you're going to be dropping temperature every time that happens. So what I do is I put a probe thermometer inside. So this is the body of the oven, of the thermometer, and the probe is inside. The probe is close to where the cake is, and so it's telling me what temperature it is without me having to open the oven door. So I just make sure that the probe is close to the cake so that I'm getting the reading from there. And then that's it. We just need to be patient. Okay, so we're out of the oven now. And what I'm gonna do is I have a glass here. This is to hold the base in place so it doesn't slide out of my hands. I'm gonna carefully take it out of the pan. And we put it on top. And we just slide this down. Okay. And then we just take this right off. Okay, that's it. There's the jiggly Japanese cheesecake. All right, thank you.